Strict rules, discipline, hard work, otherwise you might end up an anarchist. It was the new manager of Sunderland Football Club giving their team their marching orders today. It's not just that Paolo Di Canio, the new Italian in charge, can articulate a few golf club prejudices. There's the little matter of his liking for fascism. He got cross and refused to talk about it when Iadio and his friends asked him about it today. But his political ideas have got far enough up David Miliband's nostrils for him to resign from the club board. Di Canio claims there's a world of difference between being a fascist and being a racist.
I'm not in a House of Parliament, I'm not a political person. I want to talk about only football. As I said yesterday, those are the last few words that I'm talking about this situation.
In that case, maybe you shouldn't go about giving fascist salutes to the fans at Lazio, Mussolini's favourite football club. And why, in the autobiography you wrote, why talk about Il Duce as a principled, ethical individual, a man who was deeply misunderstood? Fascist is what a liberal calls someone who doesn't agree with them. Beyond that, academics have gone from wet behind the ears freshmen to emeritus professors without defining it satisfactorily. Authoritarian, yes. Nationalistic and, like Mussolini's black shirts, as brutal as required. Fascists venerate the state, are devoted to strong leaders and believe in self-sufficiency. Mussolini's fans say he only became a racist under the influence of Hitler. This, in a multiracial continent, is the key question. The word comes from ancient Rome. But ancient Rome accepted Romans from everywhere. Can you be a modern fascist and not be a racist?
Well, with us now to discuss this is Kathleen Burke, Professor of Modern and Contemporary History at University College London, the journalist Maria Mαργαρώνη, who writes for The Nation magazine, and from Rome, Senator Lucio Malan, a member of Silvio Berlusconi's People of Freedom Party. Professor Burke, what's so wrong with being a fascist?
It carries a baggage, if I may say so. I mean, fundamentally, fascism is an ideology and it's a way of organizing a government. Basically, you take every labor person, every employer, you bring them together, and the government incorporates this. So that means you have to have a powerful government, which means you have to have a powerful leader, which means if you're fascist, you believe in order, authority, authoritarian authority, and chauvinism. What you don't necessarily believe in is racism. That's not part of the job description.
So you can be a fascist or an approver of fascism without being a racist?
Yes, of course you can. You'd be a chauvinist, but that may not necessarily be race.
Senator Milan, are you uncomfortable with all of this?
No, I think this is an accurate definition. I strongly condemn fascism because it was against democracy, because it cancelled political freedom from Italy. But historically speaking, until 1935, it was not a racist movement with racist political action. Then after that, it did become racist because the fascist regime passed the so-called racial laws in 1938 that were even worse than the German ones. That is a shame that cannot be cancelled. But still, until 1935, fascism was not racist, right, as it is.
Maria Mαργαρώνη, do you think you can be a fascist and not be a racist?
No, certainly not today.
Why not?
Because the people who now are beating up immigrants on the streets of Athens, or the members of Casa Pound in Italy who killed a Senegalese man in Florence, or indeed the Jobbik party in Hungary, where a politician recently suggested that the remaining Jews of Hungary be registered, are not interested in the theory of fascism before 1935. They are interested in responding to what they see as the problem of immigration in their countries.
They could also be football players. That doesn't mean because they're football players they beat up immigrants. They may not even be fascists, the people who perpetrate these attacks.
They may not think of themselves as fascist, but they mostly belong to a movement in a very broad sense, which is based on a recovery of national pride in a moment of humiliation, and is based on racial hatred. Now, race is a 19th century invention. You know, we can talk about whether chauvinism is the same as racism, but, you know, if you think that Greeks are a superior race or that Italy should be only for the Italians, then that very easily becomes racism in the world that we live in now.
What do you make of that argument, Senator?
Well, I also mainly agree with that, because nevertheless an individual, especially when he's not a politician, can have some very arguable opinions, and among those opinions I think it is possible to be a sympathizer with fascism without being a racist. That doesn't mean that I would approve any of the Dicanios political convictions, but still I think he has the right to claim he's not a racist, although he has sympathies with fascism. One could ask him why, how can he be a racist and still support, say, praise Benito Mussolini, who passed the racial laws, but that's another thing. I don't think it is so interesting to discuss in depth the political opinions, very original, and that I absolutely don't share, of somebody who's not making politics, not engaged in politics.
What do you admire about Mussolini? Is there anything to admire about him?
Well, Mussolini, of course, is a complex character, and he was from formerly a socialist with some views that have changed during his life. For instance, he was against the intervention of Italy in the World War I, and then he turned to be strongly supportive of the participation of Italy to war. So it was a very complex character. One can have, I think, and one should have a very negative judgment on on Mussolini as a whole. I mean, considering altogether his life and his political life. Still, it is one can admit that he did something good during his government. I think any government now and then does something good. What
We're
was
almost
wrong
getting at
was not.
he made the trains run on time argument, aren't we?
Well, this is what is said. I don't know whether that was correct. But any kind of government can do something good. The difference between democracy and dictatorship is not that democracy
We've got a
does
guest
all
here,
things
here
good,
in London who's slightly
because they
brightly.
do the right way.
Yes, well, the question is, why would you say now that you admire Mussolini? This is not a historical argument, it's code for something. Why would Berlusconi choose Holocaust Memorial Day to say that Mussolini did some good things too? These things are political signals, surely.
Senator, you accept their political signals?
Well, I don't think it is, because the question, he made that statement answering to a question about the racial laws and about the persecution of the Jews during the fascism, and Berlusconi strongly condemned what the fascism did, and he he remarked that formerly fascism had not been that bad as it showed up to be during the racial laws. And I don't think that is nothing historically incorrect. And then I don't think it was a political signal. Of course, somebody can have that opinion, but I absolutely don't share that opinion.
Excuse me, Professor Burke, what does fascism mean now?
This is going to be unpopular, but I think fascism, the term, has become, in a sense, a boo word. It's a term. It's not any longer connected directly with what fascism was, if you see what I mean, with what Mussolini was and so forth. It is now associated, because of the racial laws, with racism in a way that it wasn't before. It is associated with right-wing, is associated with authoritarian, is associated with anti-foreigners. But whether that's fascism anymore is, I would leave to doubt. It's fundamentally very right-wing. I don't think fascism has become a term of abuse that isn't necessarily historically correct.
I beg to differ. It may be historically incorrect, but and certainly when I was young I might have shouted fascist, as Jeremy said, to people I disagreed with. But what I've seen happen in Greece over the last 2 years makes it very clear to me that fascism is alive. It is rising in Europe. Golden Dawn is clearly a fascist neo-Nazi party. It believes
this is the party in Greece.
This is the party in Greece which has 18 MPs in Parliament and beats up people in the street. And, you know, it believes in, ideally, a supreme leader who will express the will of the people. It believes that Greeks are a superior race, the Aryan race, in fact, and it is a neo-Nazi fascist party. So it is very much...
Why do you think that these parties are on? It's not just in Greece. I mean, Hungary is another case in point, isn't it? Why are these parties resurgent now?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a response to deep crisis, not just the Eurozone crisis, but that's made it much worse. I think it's a crisis of identity in this world where, you know, the old communities in which people used to live no longer function, and there's general atomization of society. But I think particularly in Greece and in Italy, it's a response to poverty, humiliation, and a sense that of, you know, many new people coming into the country who are not familiar and who are then blamed for, because they're the devil you see, not the devil you don't.
Okay, thank you all very much.